me just see if Dr. Andrea Adams-Miller is with us. She is, because I'm seeing her moving around. Perfect. Thank you. So let me go. Oops. Let me stay with gallery and then let me. Oh, you gotta love technology. Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much, Satish.
Okay.
Great day. Thank you for your help. And let's now, I will now bring you on an amazing young lady. Her name is Dr. Andrea Miller.
I gotta go. Thank you.
Adams-Miller. Bye-bye, Satish. Today we welcome Dr. Andrea Adams-Miller, aka the Lady in Red, and the Dream Maker. Dr. Adams-Miller is a global leader in publicity, business consulting, and neuroscience. As a CEO of the redcarpetconnection.com, she empowers top entrepreneurs, CEOs, and celebrities to achieve their grandest dreams with strategic publicity, mind mastery, and her incredible 15 billion Rolodex, 15 billion dollar Rolodex. Who has that? Like, that is so unique. With over 2,500 radio appearances and features on major networks like 2020 and E! News, Dr. Adams-Miller has shared stages with legends like Brian Tracy and Sir Anthony Hopkins in 27 countries and training at company giants like Sony and Google. She holds not one, not two, but 3 PhDs and is a certified trainer of neurolinguistic programming and hypnosis, specializing in neurofeedback and biofeedback. She's also an award-winning actress and a leader in philanthropy, spearheading the Keep Smiling movement nonprofit to promote resilience and mental health. Living on a 50-acre farm in Northwest Ohio, which I really want to come visit one day. With her husband, she remains close to her 3 daughters, grandchildren, and cat, Peachy. And with that, I present to you Dr. Andrea Adams-Miller.
Thank you. You guys almost got to meet Peachy. In fact, it was funny. My daughter named her Peachy, and I thought her name was Princess Peachy, and my husband just let her out, and I'm like, don't let her out. I wanted to show people her.
I also want to say thank you for trying to come in and save the day with me.
Yeah.
When Satish was going to be available. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, Satish is totally right, because right as we were ending, they were like, wait, I have, and I'm, oh, I'm like, all right, well, I won't hurry you. Talk about a fun topic, leadership with God. And let's talk about, the divine potential and the divine intervention that goes with this. So Marianne, I had told you I kind of wanted to make this more interactive. So she's going to try to watch, Facebook and see if we can get some of you to incorporate or add in. And if not, well, Marianne and I will be the ones intervening and sharing for all of you. So let me pull up my screen here and kind of go through some fun things here that I wanted to share with you about this topic. Marianne herself, as you guys know, she is a reverend as well. And I don't use reverend in my title because I figure I already have enough syllables in my name, but I am ordained as well. And people are often surprised to hear that, because I don't talk about God or religion very often. And there's no particular reason why. I just find that I allow people to talk about what's important to them and the higher God that resonates with them. And that allows me to meet them where they're at. So if that's a conversation that they want to have, then I will join them in it. So good morning, good evening, good middle of the night, depending on where you live and where you're at. So we are going to talk about leadership with God, unlocking your divine potential, an intervention to knowing what's really in your deeper subconscious. So I'm really excited to be here. I always love being with Marianne. We have so much fun together, and to go through this journey with everyone. And so let's kind of start by exploring our spiritual beliefs with leadership and how that really can unlock our true potential. So we're going to be diving deep into principles of divine leadership, sharing personal stories, and engaging in interactive exercises. So it'll be kind of challenging to have you share a story, although some of you might be fast typers and maybe we can do this. So we'll figure it all out. So here's what I have planned for the next hour that I have you. We're going to define what leadership means and explore the role of God in leadership. We'll discuss core principles of leadership with God, like faith, humility, and compassion. And then we'll engage in a guided visualization exercise to connect with our inner selves and that divine guidance that's available to us. And then we'll have a group discussion, if only the group is me and Marianne speaking on your behalf, to share our insights and experiences. And then we'll wrap up with Q&A and address any questions or concerns that pop up. And then we'll recap with some key points and an inspirational message to take with you. So, all right, let's kind of start with like the definition of leadership, understanding leadership with God. So leadership is not about just being in charge, in my opinion. It's about inspiring and guiding others towards a common goal, and a positive common goal, a vision that motivates others to achieve something together, whether it's business or organization or a church group. It's involving qualities like integrity, empathy, and resilience. Those are three words that are very important to me. And I want to add the word loyalty as well. When you are a good leader, people are loyal to you and because they care about you. Obviously, well, not obviously. You know what I said, obviously, and you know what? It was not always obvious in my life that others had integrity. Sometimes in my life in the past, I attracted other people without integrity. And sometimes, when you think about situations like that for your life, you might wonder if we have our leader is this God leader, why is it that sometimes we have situations that happen where we're guided to have something that's out of what we desire or want in our world? And what I've come to learn, Marianne, feel free to join at any time. I've kind of got my notes in front of me too. I'm moving my screen so I can see you better. So that way I can see your face at the same time.
Yeah, and I'm trying to keep an eye out on Facebook on my phone.
Yeah.
On here because
it'll all be good. We'll work it all out. I used to question those things myself, and now I realize that it was to help me learn, to help me see things in a better light. And I think it was also because I had this belief that I needed to. I remember going to church with my grandma when I was younger, and I had this belief. I remember in a Bible school class that said, like, suffer unto the little children, and that we had to suffer to learn. And at the time, the word suffer, I took it as we had to feel great pain and suffering. It had to hurt. Do you remember hearing a Bible study like that where they talk about the suffering, Marianne?
Yes, and just still, even today, we talk so much about suffering and the fact that no, well, I'll just suffer in silence, or I'll just do this, or our parents for sure. Oh, well, I guess this suffering is part of life, and I'm like, why?
Yeah,
why?
yeah,
and suffering.
Right. And it was within the last couple of years that I really started looking at the definition of what suffering meant in the biblical term. And I think we're reading it wrong. Suffering doesn't mean like, oh, I'm suffering from pain, or I have to neglect my needs or be without things. That's not what suffering meant. Suffering is actually like challenge yourself to stretch beyond where you're at to learn and to know. So it doesn't it doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing. So, if we're challenging ourselves to, like if we were thinking about it as running, and you challenge yourself to run a mile 15 seconds faster, you're not torturing yourself to run. You're just pushing yourself a little extra so that you can make that race go a little faster, or that mile a little faster. And if we think about suffering in that way, well, then all of a sudden, suffering is a very positive thing. It's about taking on an extra class, or doing something extra to get in better health, or, spending more time cooking a meal, or maybe spending a little extra money on something that's really important to you. And that's a better definition of suffering. That's not, it doesn't have to be painful and awful. And suffering just means a stretch. Let's just have a little stretch. And so I think in the past, I attracted things to make me suffer so that I would learn better. Well, I'm done
suffering
doing
is
that.
growth. Suffering equals growth. And even when I tell my clients, my coaching clients, I'll be like, well, yeah, you gotta do some changing. And why does change have to equal suffering? It doesn't need suffering. It's just something different. And it's really funny because even with these summits, I was like, oh, am I going to be able to do one every single month? I don't know. So I made a commitment. I did it. And now that I'm doing one day, now I want to do two. And I'm thinking already about doing three. So it's nothing more than like, that's a perfect word, Dr. Andrea, is actually stretch growth. That's all it is. But everyone gets scared of growth and starts thinking, oh, I'm gonna have to suffer.
You can see that I'm looking for something. I just put all my change in the other room. I try to keep change on my desk because there's a new thing that I've been doing. And we're talking about change, like you changing things. For some people, they find change different, or upsetting, or challenging, or whatever. But I've been telling people, I've been really focusing on the fact that change is like when we have a dollar. So I'll imagine a dollar here. And then when we make change,
oh, I like that.
Still have a dollar. We just have more pieces of that dollar that are spread out. In fact, it reminds me of I think there was a child's poem or a joke. I don't want, like he offered her $1 and then they offered her 50 cents, 2 quarters. And she said, I'll take it because 2 is more than 1. And then they offered her like 4 quarters and like 2 is more, or 2 50-cent pieces and 4 quarters because 4 is more than 1 and 10 pennies is more than 1. And I don't even remember what that's from, but that's not what change means. Like when you make change, people are happy to receive change often. And then there's people in the world. I remember I made money in high school because I picked up all the pennies that people would throw at each other. So I would pick up like, I don't know, 50, 75 cents, sometimes $2 a day in change that people threw out. And, so just different ways of concepts of thinking about things in your life. So anyhow, I got on a little tangent there. So I was
like
talking
that analogy. That was one of the comments.
Oh, good. Yeah. Yeah. Change. Yeah. When change is change, people like it, especially when change can be converted back into another dollar, especially when you get a crisp new one at the bank, fun.
Yes.
Well, and then I'll tell you a little personal story about that. So when I met my husband, our first date, he paid for our date in rolls of quarters. And I thought he robbed his piggy bank and thought, oh, wow, this poor guy has no money. And he must really think I'm important to have robbed his piggy bank to take me out. Well, I didn't know until later that my husband owned a pinball and video game business. So now in my world, change is very, very important and attractive. I remember going to the grocery store and paying for $200 worth of groceries in rolls of quarters. And they didn't always like that. But I said, it's still money. It's still the exact same money. And, so I had to weigh it, count it, put my social security number on it sometimes, and finally get them to take it. But it's really interesting how some people will push back against things that are the same. Change still equal to $1. All right.
It's important to honor all the money, right? Doesn't matter if it's $1 or $1 million.
Yeah. Change can make you money. And it's not just about money, but there is a gain for you. So just money is a good analogy to use. All right. So when we bring God into the equation, we add this layer of spiritual guidance and purpose. So, as I said, God for me is an open concept. It can be any higher power, divine presence, whatever resonates with you personally. And the role of God in leadership is to provide wisdom, strength, direction. It's about aligning our actions and our decisions with our spiritual beliefs and our values. So if we think about a tough time that you've had in your life where you faced a tough decision, do you turn to your faith or your spiritual belief for guidance? And you were talking about that with Satish, and then maybe even with Jessica before that. Do you pray for guidance and ask for help? And then how did that come to you? And then how does that influence your decision? So I'd love see if anybody had shared for us to share there. If not, I have a story I can share from a client.
Change adds up to something valuable. So true. No, there hasn't been a question or a comment on that one just yet, but
Sure.
I think
Okay.
it's important. I think it's important to address and to validate our own intuition, right? And our own messages. I believe we all have intuition. I don't think there's one person that's more intuitive, born into this world, more intuitive than the other. I think it's something they just are open to it. And then some people are not. Like I think I had to do some work at mine to uncover it. And then when I started trusting it, and I think it's also linked to your self-love, self-worth, right? The more you love yourself, the more worthy you are, the more you trust what you're feeling and thinking, and the less you're going outside of yourself, like, what do you think? What do you think I should do? What do you think? I'm not saying don't sometimes ask your friends or your coach or your colleagues or whatever. Obviously, we're human. We're going to ask stuff just for the sake of, but it took me a while before I could trust my intuition. And now it's like, oh, messages all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. So in hearing you say that, I can, you're getting messages or I call them downloads. Other people call them downloads. And it's kind of like this, everybody gets a download differently. Some people will see a symbol or an idea or a message that they feel is from God or from a higher power. I have usually I have a sense of something that and often I'll see something. So if a client is like telling me about something, I might see an image of like a book cover or them in front of a stage, or I just have this vision that pops up that I can see them doing whatever action that comes for me. Sometimes I will get this sense or a feeling of like words or something of like a talk they might do, or something that they might be called, or something that they might engage or entertain. And to me, that is that higher guidance allowing me that information. Some people do intentional prayer to get there and to get that information. Just so you know, when you walked by, you're on camera. So you can be on camera. My husband's working on the farm today, and he is wearing his most comfortable holy clothes. And I don't mean holy like in religious, like the ones that have the most airflow. So he purposely keeps holy clothes for that purpose. So we're talking about divine intervention with God today, Tom. So if you see him walking around, he wants to use his living room for this too. So I used to have my own office. And a divine intervention occurred where I had to give up my office to eminent domain for them to do a flood expansion. And I fought that from 2007 until last year. And so now I'm home, and it's nice because I do get to see him, and it took me a while to like that. So talk about one of those things, the suffer to learn to accept the change as a positive thing. So So it's nice. I get to see him and he gets to pop in. He just gets to sometimes
Nice.
be on TV or camera and he doesn't know it. So I was talking about, I was going to share a story about that. So there was a client of mine, a CEO, and he really faced a very difficult, critical decision during a financial crisis. And he was uncertain about which direction to take. This was during COVID. And he decided to pray intentionally, and he meditated and he asked for guidance. And then the next morning when he woke up, he had this sense of calm and peace and clarity. And he had made a decision that he was going to still move forward and invest in a new project, innovative, a little controversial, not controversial, like negative controversial, just didn't know how that would work. It wasn't there was some risk to it. Let's put it that way. And the decision saved his company, but also led him to have a really profitable quarter. And that experience allowed for him to reaffirm that his belief in guidance and leadership, divine guidance was there and was possible for him. I have gotten to a point in my life with divine intervention, divine guidance, that I don't purposefully pray or like go to church or congregate for the sake of like prayer and worship. I have come to a conclusion that every moment in my life is that. And so that my connection to God is constant. And so I don't have to do something separate. There's no right. My daughter goes to church and other relatives go to church and other ones don't. Some people have this, scheduled time. I totally love it. I'm excited that that works for them. For me, I'm more of an action person. I like to change my mind. I like to do things at different times. So I just take my divine guidance with me everywhere. So every moment could be church if we
I
wanted
love
it.
that explanation. I actually feel the same way, but I've never explained it that way, and I've never heard it explained that way. So thank you for that. That's perfect, actually. Thank you.
Yeah. So when people say, well, don't you go to church? I'm like, well, I'm already there. We're there right now.
Hang on, we have a question here.
Sure.
Do you think spirituality is important when it comes to self-awareness?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So often what I see in this is sometimes people are so focused on the spirituality part that they forget that they exist in that. It's not a God separate from you,
Right.
that God lives and talks through you for you to be aware in your life of what you're doing. It reminds me of that old joke of, the person being in the flood and they're saying, God, you didn't help me. And they're like, oh, for goodness sakes, I sent you a boat and you didn't take it, and the helicopter and you didn't get in, and, all these things, and, and sent the angel to you. You didn't do anything, and that's kind of it. Sometimes so people are focused that God is outside of them, or their spirituality is separate. And if we see it as the same, then it's easier to accept things within yourself that maybe you didn't like before that are all of a sudden okay. I guess another aspect of that is, I see a part of that is confidence as well. So if you're truly your higher power or God's child, or and if you are perfect in their eyes, then why are you so critical and so mean to yourself and in your self conversations? Think about that. Like that probably wouldn't go well. If you were at a congregation of church, you wouldn't stand up front and say, hello, everyone, I'm sorry that I'm fat, or I have this. You don't say that, because you are the weight that you are. So yeah, you might want to be thin, but why don't you just love yourself the way you are right now, and then love yourself as you're changing to do things differently so that you can be healthier, or take care of yourself, or to do things. So I think about that in that regard as well. So there's So spirituality and self-identity, if when we see that within ourselves, then I think we're a little less resilient. Not less resilient. That's not the right word. We are more resilient, but we're less, what's the word when you want to less critical maybe of things, less sensitive. Like if God is telling you these things and a higher purpose is telling you things that maybe you need to be aware of things to do things in a different direction, you're going to be a little softer about it and accept it a little bit better. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So she just, Amanda, the same lady that asked the question, just said, church is not a building. So true.
Ah, nice. Like it.
Oh,
Like
well put. Church is not a building. Thank you for that, Amanda. Good job.
Yeah, so let me add some things I would love for you to just kind of take away is that leadership involves inspiring and guiding others towards a common goal, and integrating God into leadership helps provide that wisdom, strength, and direction, and that your personal faith can provide a clarity and a calm during difficult decisions. When we know that there's something bigger than ourselves, all of a sudden our stuff doesn't really seem to matter anymore. When it's kind of funny, like, so I do wonder sometimes if when people say, you know, like, oh, I'm going to go to heaven and so forth, and I'm like, well, if you know everything's going to be perfect and fine, why are you worrying? So, because we know that things are going to be perfect and fine if you have that faith that everything's going to be fine, and if you have the faith that God will take care of you, then you'll get through this. It doesn't mean you can't react to it. Of course, you're going to react to things, or if you hear something terrible or someone passes away, you might be sad or you cry, or something's taken away. However, I've also learned with the NLP and the hypnosis that all of those things don't have to carry the weight that they did before. You can have a better perspective on how those problems aren't as big as we previously added to them by having all the baggage of whatever's been in our life added to whatever situation that we're in. All right, so let's talk about some core principles of leadership with God. We talked about faith, but let's go a little deeper with that. So having faith in a higher power gives courage to take bold steps and make difficult decisions. And it helps a person to stay steadfast, even in the face of adversity. Humility, when you have humility, you acknowledge that we're part of that larger plan, and that we don't have all the answers, and we don't have to have all the answers. It allows us to open up to divine guidance and collaboration of others to get those answers. And third, I would say compassion. When we lead with empathy and love, it's about serving others and creating an environment where everyone can thrive. When we lead with compassion, we create a positive impact that flows outwards towards other people. There's a book called The Pendulum, and it talks about I think it's 80 years, we swing from a me society to a we society. And then some people are just more prevalent to be a me person or a we person. I am a we person. I'm constantly thinking that any action or anything I do, how does it affect others? And some people may say, well, gosh, that sounds like a me thing, because because in my mind, whether I turn left or right, I have an impact on the world, and I'm affecting everyone. Now, some people might say, well, that sounds like it's a me thing because you think you turning left or right changes the world. Well, I do. And that's because I want to be cognizant of the impact that I make when I make any decision, however small or however big. I am impacting people around me. So even me talking today and sharing these thoughts that are my own opinions and thoughts, whether you don't like them and that causes you to be steadfast in your rules and ideas and thoughts and beliefs, I've had an impact on that. Or you think, I like what Andrea is saying, church without walls. I like this. Church is wherever you are. You're thinking about these terms, and you move or gravitate towards that. I'm impacting you. So even though it's still you're making the decision, it's your subconscious mind and your conscious mind working together to make those decisions. Things that I say have either a negative or a positive influence on your beliefs and ideals. So even if you dismiss them and say, I'm not interested in them, you still heard me. So it's kind of like anytime we hear anybody or hear anything, it's just like seeing commercials around. Those commercials are there to make you want the pizza. Whether you like pizza or not, you're looking at a pizza and you're thinking about a pizza. It's subliminal messages, even though we don't call them that anymore. Anything that we input, it's coming into our brain, into our mind, and into our conscious. And so we have to constantly scroll and delete and remove those things that are all these millions of bits that are going in our brain at any time. All right, let's talk about integrating spirituality into leadership. So, yeah, that's aligning our actions and our decisions with our beliefs and our values, and seeking that divine guidance in times of uncertainty, trusting the higher power to lead us in the right direction. And that can be done through prayer, meditation, reflection, is what I'm doing in alignment with my beliefs and values, and with the beliefs and values that I would want to have if I'm respecting whatever religious leader that I have or spiritual guide that I have in my life. Are we doing that? And when we are in thought or prayer or meditation or reflection, that allows us to really weigh on the decisions that we're making and what's right. I think that's where some of that divine intervention will kind of lead us and what path that will take. So some practical applications of this is, let's reflect on the principles for a moment. So how do you integrate faith, humility, and compassion into your daily life, and loyalty to your daily life?
You have to
And
be loyal to yourself first.
say that again, Marianne.
You have to be loyal to yourself first.
Yeah.
You have a thing for integrity, loyalty, and I'm like, okay, but if I mess up to myself, if I made myself a promise, I'm not going to stop dieting until I lose my 9 pounds or 10 or 20 or 50, who cares? Then how can I expect other people to act loyal to me? Right? Like if you're not loyal to yourself, you can't be loyal to others either. Right?
Yeah.
So it's an effort, and I wasn't always taught like that. My dad wasn't a big loyal guy. I mean, he wasn't disloyal to my mother that way, but he was very abusive. And so it was like, oh, okay, you're supposed to do things and then get away with them. You know what I mean? Like sneak them under the table all the time and do things, off the charts and break rules. And I mean, I still like breaking rules just because it's fun, but, and I'm not a rule follower. And I think that's just part of any entrepreneur. Come on, like if you're going to follow rules, like you may as well have a job. Right? What's the point?
Well, I do have to admit that I believe that rules were made for other people and that they don't apply.
They're just
Although I do have some rules of my own that are very important. Like I have a rule. I always tell people to pick your battles. And I have a rule that there is absolutely no freaking paperwork allowed or anything to be put on the middle counter in the kitchen. And whatever reason, that is a deal breaker for me.
Yeah. It's like, I don't typically talk to people after 9 o'clock. So if I do, it's like, oh, it's because I've had a long day and da da da. But yeah, I think rules are just suggestions.
Well, yeah. And it's funny because I think about that with religious guidelines as well. Now don't take that out of context to the extreme, the extreme. So like, for example, well, I suppose even that way sometimes, okay, thou shalt not kill. Like, I don't really believe like we should go around killing people. And at the same time,
no killing.
I'm not necessarily opposed to the fact that some people don't live anymore, and not, due to punishments or and so not to go onto a political rant, but there are reasons that things, happen. And while there's some punishments in place for some things in the world. And so I can see where people get in conflict with that, and how rigid are these rules, and when do they apply, and how do they work, and how do they happen, and when is it acceptable and not acceptable? And there's so many different things that we have to think about in our world, that what would be okay for us and what's not okay for a society. And then how do we handle those within your business, your life, within your politics, the way you vote, you think, you feel, the way you love, what how does faith, humility, and compassion and loyalty interplay in those things? Even when you talked about being loyal to yourself, with like someone being loyal to themselves for a diet and saying, okay, it has to be this way. I also question that sometimes, because sometimes we'll make rules on ourselves that it has to be a certain way. And what if it doesn't have to be that way? What if it's a guideline that we lay upon ourselves to do it, but it's also okay if one day you do something different?
Right.
It's okay to change our minds.
I was just going to say, it's okay to change your mind. If I get to my 20th pound and now I'm like, hey, this worked out better than I thought. So let's keep this and let's not bother. Let's keep the other 30 on, or I don't know. I'm just saying that, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. You're just using it as an analogy, and I get that.
Yeah.
And you know what, and then even humility. Okay. So let's stretch that a little bit. So I'm a publicist. So as a publicist, to be humble and quiet is not my nature. It is my job to brag about people and things and to share information.
Thank goodness.
So of course I'm going to say great. And then, by the way, I want to hear other people say great things about themselves. I want to know when they do something amazing. My husband is a non-talker. He has he doesn't share much. He doesn't talk a lot. And when he does, it's poignant, it's interesting. However, he does some amazing things and never tells anybody or anything. And people would love to hear those stories and to know that he's a fireman. He does some wonderful rescues and saving of people. And, he does other things in his life, and he doesn't ever tell anybody. And so people miss out on things that would benefit them because he doesn't share. And I think that there's things within my life that would benefit other people to hear, and I would love them to hear it. So I share. And if people don't want to hear it, well, then all they have to do is interrupt me and tell me they don't want to hear it. And that's one thing I think that's interesting, because Marianne, you and I are both talkers, and people don't realize that it's okay if they're not a talker to say, oh, I need a break. I need a break from, I have my closest friends can literally say, I tell them all the time, if I'm talking too much, we're on a car trip, tell me I need the next half hour of silence. It's okay.
And I like being straightforward. I also like people being straightforward with me. I think all this business, when we were talking about just say no, it's a whole sentence. Just say no. I would rather you say no and save yourself and myself time. I mean, if you like wasting time, that's your business. I don't want to get into that, but if I don't like wasting time, so please tell me a no instead of circling around and around. And I'm like, oh, really, are we still here? Can you just say what you need to say and let's be done? But then you got to be okay with, getting it back. So if you're going to dish it out, you need to be okay with getting it back. This is what I am. This is how I do, and this is how I feel. And now I feel like this. And okay, now I don't feel that way anymore. Okay, good. I'm glad we threw it out on the table. We unpacked it, and now we're done. And let's move on. Instead of, oh my gosh, I had a cousin. He used to do this well, they're not even married anymore, hence the reason. He used to keep quiet all the time, like the silent treatment for a week. I'm like, oh my God, I could never live. I can't keep a silent treatment with you. I'm leaving you messages. How am I going to keep silent with someone I have under the same roof and I'm living with them for a whole week? I can barely keep myself silent for an hour. Are you kidding me? Like, I don't even know how that works, but obviously that didn't work for them, but geez.
Well, just to be vulnerable here, that was a tactic that was used in my household growing up. when my dad would be angry, he would isolate and take away talking. So the silent treatment was used as a tool to make me behave as a punishment. And that greatly hurt. And it's very interesting. I had relationships, business relationships and personal relationships with friends, and then a close business relationship that I didn't realize it until I was out of it, how often those tools were used to get me to comply with different things. So saying things, or like saying, I can't, in fact, like, I can't talk to you or text to you for, I need 2 days break from you because you didn't do this or that. And then, but it was funny, if they needed something, then they would messenger me or WhatsApp me, because somehow that punishment wasn't the same as I can't text you or talk to you or whatever. And I allowed that um, to stop me from doing things, and it compromised my thoughts and beliefs and loyalty and integrity and how people and my values. So we need to be aware that you can be a very strong, confident person and do really well in your life, and then sometimes hand over your power to other people, and allow someone to lead who doesn't deserve the leadership role in your life, um, because they are really good at finding your triggers from other times in your life and using them against you. So being aware of that can certainly make you stronger. And then you being aware of that so you don't accidentally ever do that to somebody else. The more emotional intelligence, EQ, that you can have, that allows you to be a better leader. I wanted to share another little story here. So there was a community leader that I worked with who believes strongly in serving other people. And then during a challenging period in his life, he was at a standstill, like he didn't know what to do, really needed kind of something really wonderful. A friend of mine, her name is Susie Nelson. Susie said her parents always told her, when you are struggling, the best thing that you can do is do something for others. And that's what he decided to do. He was struggling with something internally. So he decided to put that pain outward, and he organized like a relief effort, something like that for the community. And even though he didn't have the resources, he trusted, that his faith, and that other people would have faith and compassion for other people, and they would come around and rally around him. And then when people started hearing about it and hearing what he was doing, he would ask other people to help serve other people, and the whole community came pulled around, and was able to add a surplus of things. I don't even know what all they did. It was something to do with the floods in Houston, and being able to pull all those people around. It helped the whole community. It helped people together, but it strengthened his own bonds within himself, because he realized that what he needed internally was, he needed some outside support as well. So by turning his pain outward to lead to help serve others who were in pain in an emergency situation, he was able to see that what was happening for him, that he had all that support around him all along. He just wasn't asking for it. So by him asking for others, he was able to, over time, release and say what was going on for him, and find that people were there for him all along. So many times everybody thinks that they're alone in things. I think I'm the only one, I'm alone, this is how it is. And that is not the case. Sadly, that is not the case. I personally wish that it was the case. I'd like to think some of the things I went through, I am the only person that ever happened to, ever, and will ever happen again in the history of the world. And unfortunately, that is not the case. There are other people having things happen, and they need someone to lead them in that. And so sometimes if you've had something or a trauma in your past, the best way to heal that is to move forward and find a way to help heal others as well. And through our own healing, we find a way to lead others to that sense of healing. So
It's so true. I find that most of the healers, I mean, I called myself a healer for a long, long time, and then, more counselor and now more coach. But I still do the same thing. I do the exact same thing I did before. It's all the same. I still did energy healing. I still did counseling. I still did coaching. I didn't do as much business coaching, and probably because I didn't have as much experience. And now I have some platforms that I can add into the coaching. Like I teach my annual coaching clients how to put one of these together, and I do one with them, and then we split the money so that they're actually making money while they're being coached, which is like a big turn on for people. But it's funny because I find all of us the better we are as coaches and healers, the more messed up we were somewhere along the line, because the
somewhere
more
along the line. Yeah.
think about it, do you really want a coach that grew up, I don't know, in a perfect household with tons of money, never had to worry or work for anything, never had to worry about getting along with anyone? Like, if you've never overcome any obstacles, how are you molded? Like, what are you going to teach me? How to live in a perfect household? Like, what's that? Like 0.0000001% of the universe? Like, I don't even know if that's even perfect. Even those households are probably not perfect. But yeah, anyways.
I do have to admit that it was quite exciting over all these years of all the things that I've done. And I worked with a lot of clients that I can never tell anybody that I worked with. I worked under a do not disclose situation when I left law enforcement. My first business, I still own this business, is a relationship business. And so people didn't want other people to know publicly. They were either like a political person or an actor or a celebrity athlete, and public knowledge of them and what they're doing would be detrimental to who they were. So they needed somebody to trust. And I have a fairly new business partner that we're doing some work together, and he just recently found out that I had one couple in particular. I did this for a couple people, but one in particular, I would go with them on their vacations because they fought so much that I literally babysat adults on their family vacation.
Wow.
Not the children, the adults.
I'm jealous. I've never done that before.
Well, it was fun and horrible at the same time. So imagine, like, you're at a swimming pool, like here I am, the consultant with them. I'm in a pool and they want to have their own life. I'm across the pool, but I'm watching them from across the pool, and I see them start to get on each other's nerves. And I, get up and walk over and whisper, why don't you rethink about how you just worded that? Like be more intentional with your words and maybe apologize for that. And then, pulling the other person aside and having them walk with me to like the towel rack and saying, okay, so your response to that, let's think about how you could respond differently. And it was like, oh my gosh, it was like playing a real game of life with people and helping them to know how to behave better and calling them out. Like, and to do it in such a way. I mean, my husband and I are both known for going, to our kids. That was, we didn't particularly say no or whatever. It was, and, or pss, pss, like you're spraying something like the cat, we don't actually have a sprayer. We go, pss, pss, and she thinks something's getting sprayed on her, even though we've never sprayed her with anything ever.
I do that with my dog too.
Yeah. So we did that with our kids. And so I'm like doing that with adults, but in a more mindful way. But it helped them. It helped them to have somebody there in the moment to call them on their actions. And it was exhausting work because you have to be so resilient to be able to understand and react to how they're going to behave, knowing that you're getting paid, and yet being willing to push back. When someone's a celebrity and they pay you to do something and then you don't agree with them, they can fire you. And yet my job is to be blunt and tell them what's going on and tell them that behavior is inappropriate. And that was challenging, and so it's funny because I learned how to do. So when my dad's wonderful, wonderful. And when he's not. And, and he wasn't. He seems to do better now. He's doing better all the time. But as a kid, it was awful. And not knowing how to react, or never knowing, having that peace of mind, how people will react, was very traumatic. And it's through all the neuroscience that I've been able to release a lot of that, so that I don't have that worry that a bomb's going to go off. And that when I now attract and work with people who are calm in the situation of, taking on fire, or, something crazy going on, that they handle it well and they're so resilient. It's amazing. It is so amazing to work with really positive people. And of course, I've worked with, just people in really small situations like that, where it's a one-on-one or a one in a couple, to helping some of my clients run their events and stuff with 750 people, or masterminds with 350, or smaller retreats, or where we traveled and did other things with them, and with teams and so forth, and with their executive staff. And a lot of people don't ever know. It's only been recently that I've been starting to reveal that I did any of that, because I realize now so much time has passed and there's so many people in the world. How in the heck are you going to figure out who I was on vacation with, or who I was managing, or what I was doing? Because I never shared it. I didn't say where I was. I didn't post those things. I didn't ever talk about them. And so all those things were able to be hidden away from the public eye. And the things that where I said I was somewhere where I might actually be with someone else, it made sense that I was where I was at. So nobody really knew anything about anything. They just looked like another person that was there at the event that I was at. So it's allowed me the freedom now to talk about things a little more freely. It's been interesting. All right, so let's give you some takeaways here. So faith provides courage and resilience in leadership. So, having the faith that everything's going to be okay and you're doing the right thing. Humility allows us to seek and accept divine guidance. And compassion creates a positive and thriving environment. And then practical applications, again, it's prayer, meditation, reflection, all set to align your actions with your spiritual beliefs. And what's really interesting is we have an ability, we're using some of the tools and stuff I have through all the programs that I've learned as a trainer. And I'm also to be a master trainer as well. To be a master trainer, right now I'm a practitioner and I can train other people to be practitioners. And then I want to be a master trainer so that I can train other people to be trainers, so that there's more people teaching the things that I teach. I'm very much in love with learning and knowing and finding out what we can learn more and more all the time. And having that ability to train how we think and feel and function, and train other people how to think and feel and function, allows us to take these practical applications even farther, and to make them and have tools such as the ability to change our values. So for me, money was always at the bottom of my values, because I'm such about a people. Money didn't mean anything to me, and I didn't see the value of money. I knew money was valuable. I actually feared, I always had money growing up. I was actually probably very financially astute compared to my peers as a kid. I got a Discover card at 16 and had excellent credit, and all these amazing things because I worked all the time, saved all my money. So my money values were really high when I were younger. And then I had something happen with the business. I was running a philanthropic walk for breast cancer, and the higher ups at this one organization didn't pay for the things that they promised. So I had to pay for them personally, which was quite financially unexpected. And I allowed my value of money to become like nothing for a while. And so then I overspent on things and didn't value money. And then I realized that I was doing that, and then was able to then look at my values and where does money now register and where could it be? And now I realized that I was throwing away the tool of money by not managing it. I don't mind that I spent it. What I spent it on was learning and so forth. However, I do mind how I spent it and out of what resources. Had I put it into different resources and then spent it differently, then that money could have been making me more money, which I already knew how to do, but I'd lost my value and being mad or angry at the system, at the rules being broken of money. So you as a leader can look at your own self and see, where am I not doing as well as I used to be? Where was I really strong, or where was I never strong or always been weak? And where could that value change? And then with working somebody like me, we can shift that subconsciously so that your value of whatever it is in your life is more important. If it's money, we can talk about literally turning up the dial and raising your money thermostat, because you'll find that people tend to lose money and then go back to the money of what they believe they are worth earning or having, and then they'll lose it again, and then they'll go to, like, they might get above it and then there's always a certain line, a thermostat financially, but there's other places in your life that thermostat might be overriding, and you have the ability to shift and change that. So we can literally align our values to match where we want to be now, because we might say we have a value, logically we say we have a value, but subconsciously we still don't, because we have some story or trauma attached to it that's not allowing it to fire like it would or should. All right, so let's do a visualization. So let's see, we got a couple minutes till Dr. Oliver comes. So let's take a moment to connect with your inner self through this guided visualization. You can close your eyes or not close your eyes. And at the same time, knowing that by not closing your eyes, you may not receive as much value as you could, but it's your choice. And even if your eyes are open, allow that whatever you're looking at all of a sudden becomes a blur, because you are now focused in. And take a deep breath. Allow your full lung capacity to fill. And exhale completely. Allow you in your mind's eye to just float and lift up away. Lift your eyes up inside of your eye sockets as if you were looking up through your eyelids, and allow that expansion to open up. And all of a sudden, instead of sitting in a room, you're in an open field or a beach or a abyss of nothing, whatever resonates best with you. And as you imagine yourself in this space, you feel completely at ease and at peace. Any sounds that you hear, any noises, any flashes of light that are around you in your real world, all of a sudden just add to the ability for you to feel even more peaceful. Even myself, consciously, I know I'm sitting in my living room, but subconsciously, my arms feel as if I'm sitting out in the field outside of my house, in the meadow area where the breeze is just blowing over the hair of my skin. And I can feel the sun shining on my skin, and yet the underneath of my arms feel cool where the shade and the sun's not hitting. And allowing yourself to be in this open, expansive place, you feel the presence of your higher power around you. And that around you, allow that around you to feel how you like to be felt. If you're the kind of touchy-feely person, imagine like a big bear hug just squeezing you in and just pinching your cheeks like you're the cutest little thing ever happened in the world. If you're a person who likes more space and stuff, you feel like a glowing maybe, or an energy rising around you. If you're a person who is more likes things more in their place or more rigid, imagine them as being clean and concise and having rules and a structure that makes you feel safe and clean and clear. You know the boundaries for this relationship. And as you feel that presence around you, it offers you wisdom and strength by allowing you to see that it's always been within you. Amazed, in wonderment, you're like, wow, look at that. It's coming out from my core. This strength and this wisdom just pulsates throughout my whole body and radiates out through my fingers and toes and through my head and just shines out all over around you in the world. As you stand there, ask for that guidance on a specific leadership challenge you are facing. And allow yourself to listen, to smell, to taste, to hear, to read, to notice the answers, whether they're from within you or around you, knowing that you'll easily be able to read them, pull them into your core to understand them, and be able to act upon them so that your situation now no longer is a situation of anything but, wow, look at that. Let's take care of it. And everything falls in place as it should. Now gently bring your awareness back to the room, because Dr. Oliver is going to be joining us in a few moments if he's not already here. And allow yourself, while you listen to the other guests on this, to allow you throughout this day to think about how you felt and what insights you gained, so that you can take them away and have a beautiful, wonderful day and solve that situation better than you ever thought you dared to desire. I'm Dr. Andrea Adams-Miller. I have a free gift for anybody who comes on. If you can either DM me at Andrea Adams-Miller here on Facebook, or you can find me at the Red Carpet Connection. If you reach out to me, I'll include you in one of my free classes that I'm having. I have some master classes, and I'm out of time.
Can you put type or whatever, put your info, whatever you want, into my Facebook page under the comments, because that's where everyone will find it. I want to say thank you so much. The session was lovely. And thank you again. Beautiful as always and perfect as always. And what a great session. Thank you so much for joining.
Bye.
Bye. Have a great day. I'll see you later.